So in the previous video we started with forms, and in this one we're going to create a contact form in our contacts page. I think yes, I've already started something here, so let me just save this and here's my file. Okay, so this is our page, contact page. What we're going to make actually is a form where a user or someone visiting your website can contact you. So basically we'll have we'll get the person's name, email, maybe the topic he's trying to ask you about, or the topic they want to talk about. And then finally we'll have a message box and submit and reset buttons. Just a simple form. I understand there are so many types we have not yet talked about. I'll try to insert others which I didn't talk about. So let's begin. We said we wanted so we are inside the form. I'll just leave it as blank. And next, first we need the name, so we start our input element of type text. Okay, so let me save this. Control S, refresh, Control R. We have name. So as you can see, when a user sees this, he will not know what they are supposed to input in this part. Let me go back here and maybe write something like it's also text, but in this time we need the user to input the subject. And when we run this fresh here, you see we have a problem. Number one, we do not know, the user doesn't know what they're supposed to write inside there. So there are two ways we can do them. The first one is writing a placeholder. So a placeholder, let's say this one is first name. So placeholder what does is it stands in place of data when the user has not yet typed anything. So let me refresh this. As you can see, now the user knows that this part needs to be the first name, and consequently let's call this placeholder last name. And refresh this. I've not yet saved. As you can see, last name. Now the user can now know that this input needs my first name, this one needs my second name. After this, I'll put BR. What BR means is break the line, so it goes to the next line, as you can see. And the next input, let me paste it. We need the person's email, so email, and let's write the placeholder as email. Have I saved? Not yet, so Control S, Control R. As you can see, next, this person requires an email. Maybe you can put another break so that you can have some little space. Okay, double BR gives it double the space. Okay, now this person can put in name, last name, email. The next thing he can insert is maybe the password. Not actually a password because there is no login. Is the subject or what he's intending to talk about in the message. I think should not have this here. So is the password. So in this case I told you there are different ways to tell the user what type of data or what is expected of him to insert in that input. Am I in that field? The first one was this placeholder. So the second one I'll use it here, which is known as the label. So what you do is do a label, and let's say the user is required to insert the subject. So inside the label we have the attribute for. So this one tells the browser that this label is attached to this type of input. So in this case the input is subject. We have not yet written the input, so let's write it. Input type is text also because this is the input. And to connect these two, what we need to do to connect this for and connect it to this input, we need to give this input an ID of subject. As you can see, this label is for the element or for the input with the ID subject. So for subject. So let me save this. Let's look here. As you can see, now there is a label to the input. So for the rest of the input we'll do them like that. The next one may be so after the subject, easy way is just copy and paste. Now we need the message, so we change this one to message, label for also message, and the ID is message. In this case the message can be long, so we'll use text area instead of input. So let's give it ID of message. Now I think you can see the difference. Whenever we need short answers, we use input and type of text. Whenever we anticipate the user is going to put in large blocks of text, we use text area. And there are different attributes we can insert in a text area element. The first one is the rows, the number of rows, let's say 50, and the number of columns, let's say something like 30. So the rows and columns actually tell the browser how big the text area should be. As you can see in the previous video, the text area was almost the same size as the input, but in this case, as you can see, the text area is quite big. Let me reduce the number of rows to about, I think 10 is enough. Let me refresh this. Okay, 10 is reasonable. I'll put a break here, a line break, so that you can go to the next line. Refresh this. Okay, now we have the message. I think after that the user needs to submit. So we're going to have the input of type of submit. Submit, Control S. Refresh here. Going to have a button of submitting. So now a user can insert their first name, last name, email, then the subject of the email, and the message. And I think with that the form is complete. Maybe I'll just add something else. Maybe we can have a different type of input which we didn't talk about in the previous video. Something like select. So we use select to have options and maybe a drop down to select different options. So select, let's say in this case we want the gender. Maybe we want to know we want to know the gender of the person who is contacting us. So let's call it gender, subject, gender. So we give this an idea of gender. So after text we need, what we need here is option. So the first one is male. So I just copy and paste this. I'm very lazy. Female. I think you can have non-binary for people who don't want to identify with any gender. So let me refresh this. It's going to come here. For the sake of presentation, I just give it a break. Save, then refresh. Okay, as you can see now, the select, someone can have different options and select the option that actually fits them. I think with that you're ready to go. I'll share with you some resources where you can look into other types of inputs. There are radios, there are checkboxes, there is range. I think these types of inputs are enough for an introduction. In the next lesson we'll look at media. So this is where you show media in your website. Let's say images, videos, what else? Audio, GIFs, any type of media. We'll do it in the next lesson. I think that lesson will conclude our introduction to HTML. The rest we'll encounter them as we do different projects later on. So thank you. Let's meet in the next lesson.